This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to the Tapped In Podcast. I'm Bud, here with Mikey. Mikey, how you doing, big guy?
I'm good, man.
Good? Good. How was your drive home last night?
It wasn't bad. It wasn't too bad at all. Coming out of a big city, traffic could have been worse than what it was, so it's pretty smooth.
I was blown away by those easy pass lanes having the gates.
They tripped you up a little bit, didn't they?
I haven't stopped at a gate for a toll in forever, and I was like, nobody knows how to do this anymore, including me, because my Easy Pass thing didn't work, so I had to swipe the card there. So no good.
If I hadn't talked to you on the phone prior, I would have been the next guy holding up the line without the Easy Pass in the Easy Pass lane.
Well, this week we were on site with a client, and we had a great week. Mikey, any good food you had this week?
Oh, man. Yeah, big city, good food. I feel like every meal was great. Lots of pizza for lunch almost every day. I mean, it's Chicago, right? There's pizzerias everywhere.
Yes, we saw, I'll show you this. For those of us watching on the YouTube, we hung out at this joint. It's down in Rosemount, where we're in Illinois, and it's got like a collection of all these different restaurants. And we hung out at this saltwater grill, the Salt Shack, whatever it was, when I tried to get out and pay the bill. It would not pay the bill, but they're like, did you bring in your parking ticket for validation? It's like, no. It's like, we'll just go tell them that you ate here. And I got up and I completely froze and forgot what the restaurant was called and just called it like the Salt Shack. And you're like, what are you talking about? We didn't eat. Like, what was that?
Classic.
And then I got to give mad props to our boy Alexi. He was walking around all day on crutches in ASM with us all day long on crutches. Like, we must have visited, how many accounts did we visit, Mikey? Like 7 or 8?
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah, and they're not small accounts. It's not like you're walking in and standing there. I mean, we're walking around. They're large format accounts, and they're pretty big.
Yep, he was hoofing around all day on crutches is incredible. So, the things that us beer folks go through to make sure that beer gets on the shelf and into people's bellies, and that everybody has a good weekend. So,
absolutely.
So today, Mikey, we're going to talk a little bit about, our topic today is owning your route. And a concept that a lot of people have talked about. We've heard of our clients. We've heard clients call it like, hey, this is, brings back some entrepreneurship into the business. This brings back, the idea of running almost like a bread route, like back in the day. They still run some of these like Pepperidge farm routes too, where you really do own a route. And the opportunity to kind of act and operate like a little owner on a little piece of a business and a little territory is what we want to talk about today. This was something that inspired you as a topic, Mikey. So why don't you kick us off, big guy?
Yeah. I mean, if you're an avid listener of the show, you know that I like 60 Minutes. I watch it almost every week. So there was a 60 Minutes episode that had a private equity group that was going in, taking over businesses, and then turning into ESOPs. So giving the employees ownership, and then watching the business just turn around and thrive once every employee was now an owner. So yeah, I found it really interesting. I also found that it aligned with a lot of the things that we say on the show and to our clients, and previously to our reps, right? As far as owning a piece of the business and taking pride in it.
Yeah, the idea of ownership, comes with responsibility. And for me, I read a book called The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack when I was in college. And I'm looking over at my notes here. And he was he is the godfather of open book finance. And this whole idea of ESOPs, it is employee ownership programs. Qualified programs is what they are. If you did any more research on them, they're qualified retirement programs. So they're like a 401k, but you actually own equity in the business. So that's the kind of mechanics of what this ESOP process looks like. What I always found fascinating about his approach, though, was it wasn't just enough to like gift ownership or just announce or anoint people as owners. This is about education and understanding. And that's where I think you and I, Mikey, get a lot of time together with our clients and our reps around an understanding and kind of the information. So, acting like an owner through this data is what gets me all excited. And we talk about autonomy and mastery and purpose and the mechanics of giving people information to make them better team members is where the outcomes start to change because the whys are different, right? And like we're on site with a client this week and nobody is waiting around for an ASM to ask for permission. They're waiting around for an ASM or a rep to take action. And that's what we want to get our teams excited about.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you do build that kind of I don't know, a culture within the business, right? And now your reps have that portion of the business, whatever it might be for their little route. They actually take pride in it. They actually want to show off once they've accomplished what they want to accomplish in some of their accounts. They want to show it off, like, hey, look, I did this and I did this in here, and this is how it's paying off, right? They take pride in that. And then there's also a piece on the FPL side too, right? There's the accountability side, so where I own this route, I want it to be the best route, the best piece of the business within the business. I want to show off to my peers. I want to show off to my management, maybe my team leaders. So with that, not only are we taking pride in the changes and the products that we have in the account, but we're also keeping an eye on our FPL, right? We also, if this is our business, we don't want to be just bleeding money. Um, and since we took ownership in our route, when we made the decisions to put those products in the account, and when they fail, right now we're going to learn something from that to make it a little bit better. And I don't have the excuse to fall back on. Well, you told me to put these products in this account. I was paid. I had an objective or an incentive, or you told me I needed to place this in here, and it failed, and that's why it went outdated. Now that's on me. I take all that ownership. I take that responsibility. And there's also the fact where now I want if I put that product in, I want to see it succeed. And if it's not succeeding, what else can I do to get it to move?
Mm-hmm. The one of the we should probably tell some stories about how we've seen reps and team members take ownership. One of the funnest ones that I remember is that there's a lot of folks in our industry that are like you need specific types of sales reps to sell specific products, and I don't agree with that notion. I I see the world through the lens of that when incentives are aligned right and the understanding of the data and the outcomes you're looking for are understood right, reps will find a way to sell a whole portfolio and will find a way to deliver results for a whole business. And we had a client down in Louisiana that was new and fairly sizable non-alcoholic portfolio, and a Good to Grow was the brand that specifically took off. And this individual rep was like in first place the first 6 months right out of the gate, rolling through on all of their goals, and they were just dusting everybody else. And the question was finally asked, rep to rep, hey Jimmy, like you ain't this smart, son. Like they're down in Louisiana, you ain't this smart. Like what are you doing different? He's like, well, I got 3 grocery stores that all have been selling Good to Grow, and they're in those like little, Mikey, like those little hangers on the shelves, and like they're just a pain in the butt to merchandise
Oh
and
yeah.
deal with. And that was like the only place they were in the store. And he finally realized like I had an understanding of how Good to Grow was so important as an incremental plus one opportunity in my business. Like I still got to sell my core beers and I still got to put my displays up, but as an incremental bonus plus one opportunity for my route, that I talked to the manager of these 3 stores and I said, hey, this is an incredible, profitable item for you. Same for me. Can we get some more shelf space of this? This is what I want to do. I want to take it. I want to put it in every checkout line. I want to take one shelf or a half a shelf, if you'll give me, right at knee height. So right when those toddlers and those kids are walking out the door as an incremental $3, $4 purchase. And I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Like if mom has made it through the grocery store, these screaming children, and I, Bud, is a pain in the butt child. I used to get a preemptive ass whooping before I went to the school or before I went to the grocery store. It's like, Mom, I haven't even gotten out of the car yet. And I'm in trouble. We haven't even stepped foot in the store yet. So if I had snagged one of these, I would get one probably every time. And you'd think like, come on, Bud, like that's only, 10 cases or 12 cases or 15 extra cases a month. Well, yeah, but at $20 a case in profitability, that matters in a huge way. You got to sell 40, 50, 60 cases of, a value brand, a Busch Light or a Keystone to kind of have that same kind of impact. And this is all plus one, like it's synthetic profit because most of us listening are probably selling, 75, 85% beverage alcohol or even more than that in beer. And the non-alcoholic product to kind of deliver that kind of results where you're not competing against yourself, you're bringing a whole new shopper into your portfolio of a kid, like that's a big win for the business and a big win for the retailer too. You became more important to the retailer. You became more important to the total output of that box in that store for that retailer. So that's a bonus for everybody. And all it took was reorganizing the incentives and education, because you can't just reorganize the incentives. You have to have the education around what it is, and why it matters, and then all these dots connect in people's heads, and they start changing behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point right there too, right? It's just if we for years and years and years and years have told our reps exactly what to go do and what to go get and what to go place, and then all of a sudden we change that and say now it's on you, right? There has to be a training element there, um, to fill that gap and kind of like, all right, hey, this is what we expect you to go do. Like that was perfect on that rep. We speak to that a lot, right? And we walk in. How many times have we walked into an account and with a client and with a rep, and the first thing they say is, "Hey, this is one of my best accounts. I have everything I need here, right? Let's look at this." And yeah, they typically they do. They have the beer on lockdown. The packages are turning and burning. There's really not a whole lot of dogs, right? They have all the priorities in there. The account looks great. And that's kind of where their mind just kind of closed off. Like, hey, this account's great. This is where I'm going to take everybody to show it off. And then you ask them, well, what kind of NA do we have in here? And we have zero, right? So there's that sense of, hey, I've done everything I need to in the beer world. Maybe I've hit all my incentives, my objectives. I got the beer on lockdown, and then that's it. But instead of that, like you just said, that plus one mentality, what else can I do? Where else can I grab a couple extra dollars or a couple extra cases within this store? That good to grow is a great one. Also any kind of energy, any kind of NA. I mean, if you have a good NA portfolio, take advantage of it. Most of those products have great GP, right? And most of those products are moving, um, and dabbling in a whole new customer that doesn't shop the Bevo department.
Yeah,
So, yeah, good
it's that.
stuff.
It's that like we will say as owners or as sales leaders, like I want to get out of being an order taker. Like I want to get my team out of being an order taker. And what does that actually mean? Like that means pick your head up and put on your sales and marketing hat. Because a lot of times there are items in the store that are doing well that you can get to grow even more if you put on your marketing hat. And that's the good to grow story. That's what that story is about. It's already in the store. We're not adding a new pod, or we're not doing this, or forcing a new item into the set that the retailer doesn't want. It's an existing item that's already there. We're just taking that extra time to influence shopper behavior and using our marketing and merchandising skills to influence that shopper behavior. other things I saw this week or we see all the time is like, what positioning are you going to take and owning your route around where a display is placed, in what order, in terms of shopability or walkability. I saw a huge display. I mean, it's a big Benny's, which is just like a machine
Yeah.
in this territory we were in. And there was a huge old style display. It was a wall display, so backstock slash display. And then behind it, buried was the Ultra, and next to that was MGD. And that shopper walks right down that front aisle. So like, it's a beautiful store. It's well merchandised. It's well displayed. And it was like, hey, what do you think about flip flopping old style and Ultra? Get Ultra right on the end where it's most visible as a premiumized product. Get old style and MGD. Those are similar type value brands, similar type pricing. Let's get them right next to each other. And then on the back wall is all your Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light, and everything else that is down the back wall. So it's a nice, that point of purchase, highest growing premium product right in the front position, and then move your way down the aisle and around the corner. And that is like the core corridor too for shopability too. Like, that shopper's rolling down that aisle looking for that stuff. This is a well-designed store. Everything, all the cooler and all the 12 packs and high-end stuff is in the cooler. But to get to the big box stuff or the big packages, you got to walk down to this back wall and pick it up there. So these are things that, again, back to your point, Mikey, when we understand how these things are relevant, how we can change shopper behavior, and how we can take on an ownership mindset. This is how we can change that behavior and get what we want from our teams, and we win as reps too. Like, the reps win in this. If we can tweak up, move that ultra velocity another 3 to 5%. That's a good thing for the rep.
Absolutely. Yeah. That story reminded me of, so not this last on site, but the week prior when I was with a different client on site, and they distributed buzz balls, right? So you've heard me on the show talk about buzz balls and how it is a powerful tool, or any kind of little plus one, impulse buy. It doesn't have to be necessarily just buzz balls, but any of those little impulse buy type items, and how important it is to just get it out in front of the consumer and out in front, maybe by the counter, by where you're standing in line or something like that, where you're going to have that impulse buy. So I was out preaching that to a lot of reps and kind of pushing buzzball, and I would see they had little stackers here and there, kind of around the store, maybe wherever it was open to get it. And then I had walked into one account with a different rep, and the sales on buzzballs, actually the GP in the store, the GP per CE in that particular store was skyrocketed. So we dug into it, and buzzballs were 150, maybe 200% higher in sales than other stores of its like, channel. And what the heck's going on here? Well, it didn't take me long to realize that right there by the counter, right when you're standing in line, you had to actually walk around it and go around it to get in the line, was this giant buzzball display, right? So I'm looking at that, and I bring it up to the rep's attention, and she goes, well, that's not the only one. Here, come look at this. So to get into the Bev L department, into the cooler space, right, you had to walk past another 2 racks of buzz balls. And then what was right there in the cooler as well, more buzz balls, right? So I'm like, wow, you have a lot of buzz balls. So you just throw this at the wall. And the rep, basically said, no, I started off small. I had this 1 rack up by the counter. They weren't really selling that well, and they started selling pretty good. So then I asked for another rack, and I got another rack, and it just kept going and going and going. And here I am now with 2 displays plus in the cold box. And that's exactly what we're getting at, right? It's like hey, that rep could have stopped with just that 1 rack, check the box, I have it in the store, I have buzz balls here. They seem to be doing all right. But in that case, that route, or that rep wanted to make the route awesome, right? She wanted to show off to her peers, like, hey, look at what I'm doing. Look at, and just take it to the next level. So ask for that other display, ask for that other rack, ask for the cold space, continuing to grow on what's working, to take the pride and say, this is what I did. This is what I did with this product. Now look at the results, where the results were outstanding. If you looked at volume trend in that account versus gross profit trend, it was amazing.
I love the evolution. It's we talk about trying experiments, and we don't have to be transformational. We can make these things incremental. Buzzball on the counter keeps going well. Expand the space. Shoppers are now starting to grab it and realize that there's an availability here. There is something to shopper behavior around, hey, if I like this product and it's consistently available at this retail outlet, I will continue to go back to it over and over again. And then we're expanding the space, we're growing the sales, we're expanding the space, and growing the sales. And next thing you know, what was this, 6 months, a year, and you went from a little counter space to a permanent display, to permanent counter and permanent cooler space, all over a incremental process that just takes time to nurture and own and lead by example for this type of outcome for you to come for it. Mikey,
That's
Mikey, when you see people want to actually, like, from an ASM or a rep level, like, take an advantage of this, what do you think is like the first thing that they grab?
take advantage of the ownership on the route.
Yeah, just the mindset. What do you think is like the first thing where it's like, huh, this makes sense now, or huh, I haven't thought about that. Like their aha moment.
Yeah, the aha moment is typically I don't have to have this particular product in this exact SKU in this account. You know, as we've talked about it before, but watching a SKU sit on the shelf, get dusty, go out of code, and then rinse and repeat, right? Rinse and repeat because somebody's told you that SKU needs to be in there. Their aha moment is typically, I could really use a different product in that space on that shelf, right? So yeah, even within the brand family, hey, if this 6 pack bottle is not working and it's not turning to burning, let's try a 6 pack can or let's try a different brand. That's usually their biggest aha moment where I now have control of my account. Now I want to do the things that I know that I can because I know this account, I know this market, I know this area. Typically the rep is going to know the account better than the owner, better than the manager. In most cases, they know what sells. They definitely know it better than leadership. Um, so yeah, so that aha moment of, hey, I have the flexibility. I want to take this to the next level. I've been really doing good with this product, and I need some more space to expand it. We saw that. I saw it this week with singles in a pretty small single space. Space was limited. Needed to have items in there that were working and moving. We had one IPA in the entire single section. They had it, and it was moving. I mean, moving a case and a half a month, which was really good for the volume of that store on the singles. And there was only one IPA, and we had 2 or 3 dogs that were barely turning a case every 90 days. So that's when it's like, okay, well now I have the flexibility to get rid of this other single that's not turning a case every 90 days, and let's get something in that's turning a case to a case and a half every 30 days, and expand off of what's working. So yeah, just watching them light up and watching them say, hey, I have the freedom to go ahead and do what I need to in this account and what makes sense for the account. um, yeah,
They get excited. They
they
get
get
excited. It's fun to
it.
see. It's fun to see them learn. It's fun to see them kind of break free and find that ownership mindset for sure.
Absolutely.
So, addition to that, today we also saw the Brewers Association came out with their list of top 20 or top 50 brewers for craft brewers too. And Mikey, in 2023, the top volume increased by 3%, but 26 of the top 50 record declines. So I think that's tough, right? Like the craft business, just some contextual kind of news here. Boston, Boston beer number 2 declining by 7%. Sierra Nevada number 3 declining by 1. Duville number 4 declining by 6. The Grambinas Company declining by 2, which is number 5, and then Monster Brewing, or formerly Canarchy Brewing, or now Canarchy Brewing. No, it is Monster Brewing. It was Canarchy Brewing. Number 9 down 11% to. So like some of the big guys at the top struggling. Now, some that are growing, obviously Yingling and Sons, number one, they grew 17%. That's also their expansion too. They got a big opportunity to grow organically just from raw new mileage and territory too. Tilray up 29%. Duh. Like when you buy all that volume, like
Yeah.
And then Brooklyn Beer up number 8, up 20%. And this is always the wild one. Athletic number 10, up 51%.
Yeah, and we've touched on that on a few episodes of don't let these NA brands sleep on you, right?
You
They're
can't.
growing. You can't. They're growing. You need to get them out there. I saw some great displays, standalone NA displays this week, which was great. And they're turning, you know. We talked about on-premise NA a lot. Have those conversations with your accounts. I mean, this is a monster category that is growing, and if you have some of these brands like Athletic that are growing, we need to be throwing these at some on-premise accounts. I know a guy. I'm looking at him, right, that will walk in for dinner and order an NA beer. I know a lot of people
Sure.
that do that. The other we're working about, and he said his internal circle of friends, almost all of them are NA drinkers now. So
The NA game is huge, and what is fascinating to me, or continues to be fascinating to me, is how you've got New Belgium 19.2s. I will continue to say this until it's not news anymore, well, until it's not happening anymore. But New Belgium 19.2s, Voodoos, and the whole Voodoo brand at 7, 8, 9%, growing, moving the needle, and non-alcoholic brands and Athletic crushing it. So that whole wing, there's like this part of the ecosystem or part of the social network, social media that doesn't pay attention to this whole concept of no safe level of alcohol. And then there's this whole other people that are like, we don't want to drink alcohol anymore. And those two centers are just, or those two wings are just rocket ships on either end of it. Ride them both. Like we all have non-alcoholic brands and we all have craft brands that are in that 7, 8, 9% range and beyond that are the 19.2s as well. So other breweries that grew this year. How do you say that one? Is it Nagasaki? No, that's awful. I don't even know how to say that, Mikey.
I'm not even gonna try to struggle with that one.
Okay. August Shell up. Fiddlehead up. I think Fiddlehead's up pretty solid because they did that whole Sheehan. I mean, Fiddlehead is growing personally too, or kind of the baseline stuff. But from what I'm seeing from talking to clients and other distributors, that kind of Sheehan exchange has really seen some growth in their kind of core markets in the far northeast as well. Creature Comforts up and Coronado Brewing up. They made that switch to the Reyes network. We've heard about that. I think that's helping them locally in the U.S. or in their local market from, I forgot who they moved from, but I think that's moving them in the right direction too. So just kind of crazy how we're up and down, left and right. And then some of the ones that are struggling the most, Deschutes, FX, Matt Brewing, that's in there in the Northeast, got a bunch of different brands. Lost Coast, Rogue Ales, and then Indie Brew, which is Scofflaw and Bearded Iris. That's a combo between the two of them. So kind of like the seasoned veterans there. What I'm seeing here is kind of the seasoned veterans of the crew at the top and at the bottom of the list are declining, and some of the new folks in the middle. And we're really kind of some of the new folks are kind of all in the middle, or where they've made some distribution changes for one reason or another, are growing as well. That's just kind of fascinating to see. And then you've got the Athletic thing. Do you think we'll ever see a second brewery, non-alcoholic brewery, crack the top 50?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see a close second for sure. Probably going to take 5 years, but we'll get there. I think it's also worth noting too. We talked to some friends that we have in the industry on the brewery side that CBC this year, record low attendance, not a whole lot of people there, not a whole lot of buzz behind that too, which is a little concerning.
Yeah, where it was like light attendance potentially, especially by brewers or classical brewers. And, where do we go from here? We've been talking about Delta 9. We're probably going to see a lot of these brewers reposition some of their products into that Delta 9 wavelength. We've talked about this in a handful of episodes or a couple of them already. We'll keep talking about it. And then the non-alcoholic game is going to get bigger. I don't know if we'll see another independent non-alcoholic brewer in the top 50.
No.
No, I mean you got the category that used to be run by O'Doul's, Bush NA, and I think it's Car Block, the Coors product that was non-alcoholic
Yeah,
on a
something like that.
national level. I think those were like the three big hitters on the NA beer nationally. And now, like, I wouldn't be surprised if O'Doul's isn't DQ'd by the end of the year by the brewery, by Anheuser-Busch, or if it hasn't already been already with all the focus around Bud Zero. So, and Bush NA is still growing. And then you got Guinness Zero, Heineken Zero,
Yeah.
which is a rocket ship.
That's where I think
And
that number two is going to come in, is one of those. I mean, if Athletic is cracking the top 50, right, with a craft, we need the clean beer. Now, who's gonna come in with the clean beer, right? If it's going to be Bud Zero, is it going to be Heineken Zero, is it going to be Guinness Zero? But I think that's where it's gonna. I think one of those are definitely going to crack.
I don't know. And we haven't seen this shoe drop. I've been talking about it a little bit inside with clients and with friends. These non-alcoholic beers, they are like 14 carbs.
Yeah,
So people haven't started figuring that out yet. I wonder how that plays out for the long-term growth trajectory too. You got Ultra and Miller Lite in the 2 carb range, or even Bud Light in more heavier kind of craft beers in that 6, 7, 8 carb range, and you got these non-alcoholic beers are like, some of them are like pork chop in a can, man. I'd rather have a Cutwater. I'd rather have a Cutwater, espresso martini and get 2 shots of alcohol and pound on 400 calories and sugar than do a 14 carb non-alcoholic beer in some nights too. So I think that'll play in. I wonder how much hop tea maybe or hop water shows up as well in the next 12 to 18 months on the back of this kind of success.
yeah, true.
Well, I think that does it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, Mikey. Always appreciate you. Great week. And everybody out there in listener land, y'all have a good weekend. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.